Working is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. What if comparing car insurance rates was as easy as putting on your favorite podcast? Well, with Progressive, it is. Just visit the Progressive website to get quotes with all the coverages you want. Then you'll see Progressive's direct rate, and they will provide options from other companies so you can compare. All you need to do is choose the rate and coverage you like. Quote today at Progressive.com to join the over 29 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
When I'm working on a song, I try to put myself in the shoes of somebody who's listening to that song. It's like making a painting. You draw what you have, what you see. But in here, you don't see it, you hear it, and you feel it.
Welcome back to Working. I'm your host, Nate Chinen.
And I'm your other host, Isaac Butler.
Isaac, whose dulcet tones did we hear at the top of the show?
We heard the mellow and beautiful voice of Peter One. He's an extraordinary singer-songwriter from the Ivory Coast who now lives and works in Nashville.
And why did you want to speak with Peter One?
Well, here on Working, we're really focused on the creative process and craft and not as much on biography, but I would be lying if I didn't say that his life story is part of what hooked me. So in 1985, way back in 1985, when the Atari 2600 was the home entertainment system of choice, Peter One and another singer-songwriter named Jess Sah Bi released an album called Our Garden Needs Its Flowers in the Ivory Coast. It's this really gorgeous blending of kind of West African music and 70s American folk country, kind of the Laurel Canyon sound, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Flower garden, but today we change. Thorny garden, the zoos have succeeded in them.
It was highly influential in West Africa. It made them big stars in that region. Peter then moved to the United States and didn't release any music again, really, until this year with his latest album, Come Back to Me, which just came out. In the meantime, he's been raising a family. He's been working in the nursing field to support them. And, so I was really interested in that and interested in what it's like to return to a creative career in your 60s. And also the album's really beautiful and I got hooked on it.
I saw Peter One at the Big Ears Festival in Knoxville this spring, and it was one of those things. He had multiple shows, and you couldn't get near any one of them.
Really?
There was this real sense of like, you have to see this guy.
Yeah, I haven't seen him live. What's his live show like? Is it really good?
I mean, it's as transfixing as you would imagine.
Got it.
Yeah. He really knows what he's doing. So before we get into the conversation, I would guess that you saved some pretty great questions for Peter One for our Slate Plus members. What can they expect?
Yes, definitely. No BB Plus questions here. Only the greatest questions for our Slate Plus members. They'll get to hear a bit of Peter talking about moving to Nashville and what that city means to him and the status of his collaborative relationship with Jess Sah Bi, whether or not we can ever expect some music from the two of them again.
Oh, that sounds excellent. If you're a Slate Plus member, make sure to stick around for that bonus conversation at the end of the show. If you're not a Slate Plus member, guess what? You can sign up today at slate.com/workingplus. You'll get exclusive members-only segments, bonus episodes of shows like Slow Burn and Big Mood, Little Mood, and you'll never hit a paywall on the Slate site. Also, if you become a Slate Plus member, you'll be supporting our work and the work of everyone at Slate. To learn more, go to slate.com/workingplus. All right, now let's hear Isaac's conversation with the musician, singer-songwriter Peter One.
Peter One, thank you for joining us on Working to talk about your process.
Thank you, Isaac. Thank you for having me.
So first, we should, of course, probably acknowledge that there's been a 30-year gap between your previous album, Our Garden Needs Its Flowers, and your new one, Come Back to Me. During that time, you moved to the United States, you were working in nursing, you had a family. Were you also playing music privately and writing songs that whole time?
Yes, I was writing. I've never stopped writing songs. As a matter of fact, soon as I got to the U.S., I started educating myself. And the first thing I did is to start building my home studio. So this helped me stay in touch with music all the time, writing songs, listening to new music, and finding out to, work on old songs, new songs, and revising, everything. I've always been in touch with music all the time. So.
What's the oldest song in terms of when it was written on the new album?
The oldest one is Bonne Année.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Bonne Année is a song that I wrote in 1980.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in just a few minutes.
Oh, really?
Bonne année, bonne année. Bonne année, bonne année.
My friend and I, Jess Sah Bi and I, we were doing just radio shows, television show on the national television station in the Ivory Coast. And one day we got invited. At that time, I was just starting teaching in a small town somewhere in the Ivory Coast. And I came for the Christmas break, came to Abidjan. As soon as I got there, my friend told me, okay, listen, George Benson, that's the name of the host of the show. George Benson wants us to come to his show on New Year's Eve. It was the same night. So I said, okay, so what are we going to sing? Because we didn't have any song for the occasion. And I said, we're going to sing something else, some of our old songs. So it would be better to, innovate a little bit, bring up something new. So I said, okay, come on, I got something. How about this? And we start playing and singing, and it came out good. You say, well, yeah, we can take that. That was our very first show live, because before that we were playing, but it was pre-recorded and aired later. So that was Bonne Année and New Year's Eve, 1980.
Incredible. And is that usually how your songwriting process works? That just like a thunderbolt of inspiration hits you and out comes a song almost completely formed?
Yeah, sometimes songs come in like in a few seconds, and if you don't grab it, it's gone. That's one of the reasons why I always have my cell phone with me, and I have my studio also. I can wake up in the middle of the night with something coming to my head and just jot it down, record it before I forget it.
Yeah. So when inspiration strikes and you don't, you're out of your house, you don't have your guitar with you or whatever, are you singing into a voice memo on your phone or something like that just to make sure you hold on to it?
Correct. That's what I do. I always have my cell phone with me in the car when I'm driving or when I'm walking in the street somewhere, and something can inspire me right there, and I have a couple words, and sometimes with the melody, sometimes just with the words, the lyrics without the melody, and I'll find the melody later. But most of the time it comes as a form of melody, and I try to add some words in it to make it a little bit vivid, to make it real. And so later on I can work on it.
Yeah. Well, I thought maybe we could talk about a specific song on the album. Just the first track, Chéri Vico. The chorus of that song is, of course, where the title of the album comes from, Come Back to Me. It's a beautiful, beautiful song. I remember the first time I heard it, because your press people, sent me the album, and I was walking down the street and I literally stopped in my tracks to just listen to the album. My dog that I was walking at the time was very, very confused by what was going on, because it's so beautiful.
Chéri Vico, yeah, highway down there. Chéri Vico, highway down there. on serait fait où, en way des antés.
Can you just talk a little bit about the songwriting process for that track? Where did it begin for you? Was it with the guitar line or the chorus, or were you in your car? You know, where did it start?
The song itself is, from an old melody, and I just had to add some guitars. The first version was a different way of playing the guitar. And then over time, I came up with this bit of the rhythm of the guitar, came up with it. And I found that very nice. So when I met the producer, Kevin Daly, a producer who was interested in working with me on my music, the very first song was Don't Go Home. And then the next one was Sherry Vico. I started playing that. And he was really interested right there. So I said, okay, let's keep it this way. So this way of playing the guitar is probably interesting. So I kept it this way.
So that guitar line, how did that evolve? Were you basically just like singing the melody and doodling around on the guitar until you found the right figure? Or
yeah, the first version, I had some African beat that we call high life.
Yeah.
And then I look at it and say, let me change a little bit and make it more modern, more, pop, more international.
You mean the drum beat was high life, or just the rhythmic structure of the guitar line?
The rhythmic goes with the drums.
Yeah.
It's the way you play the rhythmic that the drummer will play. But all I kept in there from the first version to this new version is the shaker. Yeah, the way the shaker plays. I kept that just to keep the African flavor in there.
Right. Well, the guitar line has a kind of high life feel to it too, right?
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah. And, there's also those beguiling overdubbed vocal harmonies. Were those worked out in the studio? Had you kind of figured those out in advance, or?
Yeah, I wrote them way before we went to the studio.
Come back to me. Come back to me.
The song by itself, without those vocals, it was a little bit too simple to me, a little bit flat. Yeah, I needed to bring in something to raise up a little bit and make it more, make it sharper.
You sing in 3 different languages, is that correct, on the album?
Yeah.
How do you decide which language you're going to sing in when? I mean, Sherry Vico, for example, you're singing in 2 different languages just on that song. There are some songs that are in French. And, how do you decide which language fits the mood of the song?
It comes with the melody.
Oh.
The melody makes me think that this would be better in English, would be better in French, would be better in African language. Second is the topic. When it comes to the lyrics, now I decide if it's a topic that I want to address for the international audience, I will sing it in English. If it's aimed to the Ivory Coast, audience, I will sing it mostly in French. If it's something that is not really addressed to the international markets, I will sing in my language, whichever is more comfortable. So in Sherry Vico, I just translated what I'm saying in Guru. Come back to me. Eat downly, come back to me. That's what it means.
Right.
Oh, Vico, hey, eat downly. Oh, Vico. Vico is short for Victorine. And Sherry is baby,
Right.
So baby Victorine, come back to me. I just translated it from the African. Yeah.
Amazing. Are you sitting on a big pile of songs that you haven't recorded at this point? You must have a big back catalog.
Oh, yeah, I have a lot of songs right now. I have a lot.
Are you still kind of fiddling with, are you trying to figure out what to do with those, or, what's your process like with that older material that you haven't recorded yet?
I'm still working and I'm trying to find ways to make it better. As an artist, you're never satisfied.
Yeah.
Was looking to do better. Sometimes by doing that, you come to ruin what you the good job you did before, but I don't care.
Right.
Yeah.
And, is doing better with the song usually a matter of, I don't know, how it's arranged or trying different melodies or?
When I'm working on a song, I try to put myself in the shoes of somebody who's listening to that song, somebody who's in front of me, like an audience, one person, a group of people listening to that song, how they would react, how they would perceive the song. So from there, I kind of feel the atmosphere, the ambience, and I try to translate this ambience into sounds as far as reverbs, the melody, how the guitar would play, which sound of the guitar I would use, all these things. So it's like making a painting. You imagine a landscape and you draw what you have, what you see. But in here, you don't see it, you hear it and you feel it.
Right.
We'll be right back with more of Isaac's conversation with Peter One.
This episode of Working Overtime is brought to you by Factor. Now that it's summer, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for sunny, active days. Well, Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with flavorful and nutritious ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track reaching your goals. Listeners, I will admit I was a little bit skeptical of Factor at first because it involves the microwaving of the food that they send you, but they're not TV dinners. They're never frozen. They don't taste like a boatload of chemicals. It's fresh food that you reheat at home, and it was actually really delicious. So if you're looking for some calorie-conscious options this summer, you can try delicious, dietitian-approved, calorie-smart meals with around or even less than 550 calories per serving. This June, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed food delivered directly to your door. Head to factormeals.com/working50 and use code WORKING50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code WORKING50 at factormeals.com/working50 to get 50% off your first box. This episode of Working is brought to you by SAP. Welcome to the window of opportunity, when your next move can either make your business famous or obsolete. So you need to be ready. Be handling good surprises and bad ones ready. Be opening a Portland, Houston, and Providence location on the same day ready. Be stock options plus paid family leave ready. SAP has been there and can help you be ready for anything that happens next. Because it will. Be ready with SAP. Hey listeners, Isaac Butler here. I just wanted to say that we really want to hear from you. Every other Thursday, we have this extra show called Working Overtime, where we answer listener questions, give advice, kind of explore some of the topics that come up in our interviews, things like that. So please tell us your creative challenges or your ideas for guests or your triumphs, your failures, whatever it is, and let us help you. Drop us a line at working@slate.com. You can also send us a voice memo to that address, or give us a ring and leave a voicemail at 304-933-WORK. And while I've got your attention, if you happen to be enjoying this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Working wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, now back to my conversation with Peter One. Are there friends or family members that you kind of play songs for to get their opinion of them while you're working on them?
Oh, I used to do that, but no more.
Why'd you stop?
First of all, some will ask you to, can you copy this? Can you make a copy of this for me? And when you do that, by the time you finish, your music is out there.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
That's one reason. The second reason is when there's a song is not totally built yet with the instrument, with everything,
Yeah.
Just by the guitar and the vocal, the full extent of what you want to express is not always possible. So I will do that for professionals, for people who are professional, but for the, lay people, lay person, I don't do that anymore.
So when you went into the studio with this album, did you have demos of the songs to give a sort of more fleshed out idea of what you wanted it to sound like?
Yes, the musician, they got the demo, and when we got to the studio, from the demo, we built new ideas. But not far from, we kept the structures, everything, but we worked on the sounds, how to get the sound, how to, the beats, the speed, all that, They brought up ideas also. So it's a combination of ideas from everybody.
Yeah, totally. So just to go back to the demos for a second, is that just you and an acoustic guitar, or have you put some drums on it, done some overdubbing? How evolved are the demos that you're giving the band?
The demo we gave to the band was just 2 guitars, mine and Kevin's guitar. And I did my vocals. And I think in 1 or 2 songs, we added the background vocals.
Got it.
No drums, nothing.
Right. Got it. And you said that, it was really a collaboration with the studio musicians. Were there any songs on the record that changed really dramatically from how you had originally conceived them based on that collaboration?
Yes. On my own.
What was the original idea?
The original idea was on a very pop song with a strong lead guitar, like beef guitars in some spaces, contrasting with the vocal, and the foundation would be heavy and the vocal would be on the top of it, but not heavy. That's not what we get.
It'll take time to go through my pain. It'll take time for me to love again. It'll take time to go.
When we got to that song, the producer, the management, they say, okay, they want it this way, they want it this way. We haven't discussed that in advance, so we didn't have time to discuss that anymore. So I just went by what they said, but it's not actually what I wanted, but we didn't have time to discuss anymore. And now, when we're touring, we try to play the way I want it, and they like it. They like it. They start singing now what I was saying.
Oh, wow. Amazing. So, well, if you put out a live album, you can have the alternate version.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So your album was co-produced and engineered by Matt Ross Spang. And you were, of course, the other producer. You co-produced it with him. What do you look for, or what maybe makes an ideal, producer-artist relationship?
From my experience, from what I've been doing so far, a good producer is, first of all, somebody who's good at engineering sounds, how to use the mics, how to use the console, all that to get the sound that you need. And it should have a good background music also. Not necessarily, a very good player, but background in the sense that he listened to a lot of music, listened to different music. He has, experience of the way the different music are recorded, because each music has its best way to be recorded to really express the deep meaning of that music. So a good producer should have that, and a good producer should be open to suggestion, as is should be able to make suggestions also.
Mm-hmm. How do you work with, or, communicate your vision to the musicians? Are you referencing other acts? Are you singing the things you want them to play? Like, how do you get the folks in the studio to do what you want when the original thing they're playing isn't quite what you had in mind?
The first thing is I let them play the way they feel it. On the demo, from the demo, I let them express their feeling. If goes toward what I want, I take it.
Right.
But if it's going too far from my vision, then I tell them, okay, how about doing it this way? I make suggestion and we walk from there. And that's how we did it. For the drums, for the bass, for the guitar, lead guitar, we didn't have much to say because the lead guitar was already immersed in that in that music already. I don't know how he did it, but he was in there already.
he just got it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Do you think about genre when you're, recording these songs? Because the album pulls together a bunch of different genres. There's blues, there's high life, there's Afrobeat, there's American folk, there's kind of Laurel Canyon-y stuff going on in there. Do you think about that, or is it just sort of more organically what comes out?
I think about that, but not too much, because music is music.
Right.
And it's also my background. I grew up and I've listened to different music, and I choose to do this kind of music that is relaxing, that's music to be listened to. It's not for dance, like most of African music that are made for dance. I choose to do that. So I try to add things that are, very interesting to me. And in Nashville, my dream always been to bring something new. Even though I claim I want to do country music, folk music, I should bring something new, something that reflects, another culture.
So when it comes time to play these songs live, how do you think through that? Like, what makes for a good live show for you? How do you conceptualize your concerts? I
haven't quite got where I want to go with the live shows yet, because so far we've been opening, so we don't have our own console. We don't have our own, sound system, our own engineer to really shape the sound that we need live. We rely on what we get so far. But to me, a good live show is well prepared, and it has to do 50% with the band and 50% with the people on the console.
Right. And another challenge of being an opening act is, of course, the audience isn't there to see you. They're there to see, or most of the time, they're there. Like, you open for Jason Isbell and the Walkmen, and, most of the audience who's there in the room is probably there to see Jason Isbell. And so, and part of the job of the opener is to kind of win over the crowd, how do you handle that? How do you think about that? Because that seems like a weird job to me. I've never been an opening act, but it seems like a weird job.
It's not a weird job for a beginner like me, talking about the American audience. Yeah. It's an opportunity, opportunity to show what I can do, what I'm able to do, and expecting the people to like what I'm doing, and finally get my own stage. I don't find it frustrating at all. I think it's a blessing. It's a chance that they're giving me a chance to get on the stage.
Do you test out new songs live just to see what the reaction is like?
Yeah, I play a lot of new songs. Like last night, I played one of the songs, and I was surprised the audience was singing with me.
Oh, wow. Well, then you got to put that one on the next album.
Yeah, next album, of course. They loved it, and they started singing with me, even though they don't know that song. But the chorus was easy, and they started singing with me. I said, "Oh, you guys are great, audience. You guys are great."
You should just take them with you wherever you go.
That's true. Yeah.
That's amazing. So, are you on tour right now? Are you at home? What are you up to these days?
Right now, I'm opening for the Walkman. I'm in Washington, D.C.
My hometown.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I got to ask, what club are you playing in DC?
930 Club.
Oh, that's the best place. I saw so many shows there in high school. I love the 930 Club.
Yeah, it's a great place.
Yeah, amazing. Do you still have an African fan base, from your previous album? Are you going to play concerts over there? Or, what is your relationship like to that audience from 30 years ago?
Yeah, I have a large fan base. I just need to reconnect with them because ever since I came to the US, I haven't been really present. I don't do social media that much. I just started now with this because I don't like to show my face if I don't have anything to show, So it's now that I'm reconnecting and they're really reacting well. I went recently, I was in London. I met the community there and they were really, really happy to find me again. In France, it was the same thing. They were really happy, even though I didn't play in France. I think they're ready to see the shows again of Peter One and his band. And in Africa, in the Ivory Coast, I've been receiving a lot of good feedback from the people, even the young generation. I was there last May. I did 2 television shows. And one of the shows was really, really great because the young people were born after I left. They love the music from the past, and they're seeing now the guy who was singing that music. They were really, really euphoric. So, yeah, there's a good job to be done there.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us to talk about your process right here on Working.
Oh, thank you, Isaac. Thank you for having me.
Coming up next, Isaac and I will talk about the role of intuition in creative work and what it's like to discover forgotten pieces of art. All that and more after the break.
Hey everybody, it's Tim Heidecker. You know me, Tim and Eric, Bridesmaids, and Fantastic Four. I'd like to personally invite you to listen to Office Hours Live with me and my co-hosts, DJ Doug Pound.
Hello.
And Vic Berger.
Howdy.
Every week we bring you laughs, fun, games, and lots of other surprises. It's live. We take your Zoom calls.
Music.
We love having fun. Excuse me?
Songs. Vic said something.
Songs.
Music.
I like having fun. I like to laugh. I like to meet people who can make me laugh. Please subscribe now.
Hello, I'm Isabel Berwick and I host the Working It podcast from the Financial Times. I'm fascinated by the changes affecting our working lives, and I'm on a mission to help everyone thrive at work. With fresh episodes every week, we tackle topics like how to deal with a toxic workplace, how AI will change our jobs, and the best way to ask for and get a pay rise. We hear from leaders and workplace experts, as well as from my colleagues in the FT's Global Journalism Network. Find Working It from the Financial Times on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Isaac, that was a beautiful conversation with a guy who seems like a genuinely beautiful person. His music conveys so much about his personality. There's the sensitivity, the humanity, maybe some of his humility and resourcefulness. But, of course, it doesn't tell the whole story. So the first thing I'd like to ask you is whether the Peter One you interviewed was the Peter One you were expecting.
Yes and no. I mean, his press reps had told me in advance that, he's a quiet guy. He's a quiet, sensitive guy. And that's the kind of tone he's going to bring to the interview. And so I was expecting that. And I think that sensitivity is a real extension of his personality that shines through in both his music and in our interview. The part that was, I don't know that if it's a surprise, but this was the thing that I found really interesting is the layer of real confidence that lies behind that. He's not quiet because he's an introverted guy who doesn't know what he wants and he's just hoping to get by. Do you know what I mean? And some artists are like that, and that's fine. I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying that, he has a vision of what he wants to do musically and in his career, and he's pursued it in a really, really serious way. We often associate that with a kind of exuberant, extroverted personality, whereas I interviewed someone like Yola. I interviewed Yola for this show, and she's someone who's like a very charming, bubbly extrovert, but she also brings a lot of collaborators into her songwriting process. Her songwriting process is way more one of discovery, unless I know what I want to do in advance and stuff like that. And so it's just interesting that personality types and creative processes don't necessarily align 100%.
There's a moment in your conversation that so perfectly illustrates this when you ask him what he looks for in a producer, and his first answer is basically like, I need somebody who knows how to work the equipment so that they can capture what I'm doing, you know?
Yeah.
He's not necessarily looking for input. He's kind of like, just, capture it as beautifully as you can because this is what it is.
Yeah, totally. And, there's lots of different producer-artist relationships, right? There's you think about Brian Eno and Talking Heads, where he's really going in and uprooting their sound and is eventually credited as a co-writer of the songs on Remain in Light, and then there are producers where it's much more about just trying to capture the artist's vision as cleanly and clearly as possible.
Mm-hmm. Hearing him talk about his process too, I was really struck by the premium that he puts on intuition. There's another answer to one of your questions where he says that he tries not to think too much.
Right.
So, there's obviously a lot of study and experience and expertise that feeds into his music. But what do you think about his natural inclination toward not overthinking? Is this just a personality type that we encounter, across the arts?
Well, I'm an overthinker, so I'm always fascinated by people who can shut the left hemisphere of their brain off and just fucking do their work, Right. I really do admire them because it's not what I'm like. I'm deliberative. I take a long time to come to decisions. I'm always doubting them and going back to them, I think that one of the things that having a great deal of knowledge and experience in your field in both a craft and a practical level, listening to, in this case, music, listening to a lot of music, practicing your instrument, spending a lot of time. In his case, he built a home studio so that he could do that kind of work. That enables you to be intuitive. Right? Mm-hmm. It's that stuff operating in the background that allows intuition to happen. And so for overthinkers like me, the trick is to actually recognize when that's what's going on and to follow that lead. And for more intuitive people, I think it's sometimes recognizing that you really do need all that stuff, all that work as the foundation for what you're doing. I will also just say that, this is a personality type that we nurture in the arts, which I think is a good thing, and that other fields could recognize the validity of the intuitive personality type and use its particular advantages more. Not everything needs a quantitative study by a team of consultants before you make a choice.
Right. When you're talking about, his building the home studio, there's something so remarkable about his story in that, he hasn't really been reliant on the whims of the recording industry or the music business. He seems kind of grateful for that happening, but not at all putting all of his eggs in that basket. He's going to write songs. He's going to be a musician, no matter whether anyone is listening or, thousands and hundreds of thousands of people are listening.
Yeah. And as a result, he has a huge back catalog of songs, right? I mean, I was interested that he's been writing songs the whole time. And so he has a huge back catalog of songs. Live, he's playing all sorts of stuff that's not on his albums. The business stuff had to be in the right place for him to make the choice to switch careers, right? That's the practical side, right? But the entire time he's been making his art, whether or not anyone was buying the album or whether there was even an album to buy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask about his choice of profession outside of music. I think it's kind of remarkable that when he was seeking to, support himself, he didn't decide to teach guitar or go into, writing jingles or teaching music education. And, there was nothing related to music in his occupation. He went into nursing. And it's clear that while he takes considerable pride in his work, he's not a prideful person, it seems. He seems really pragmatic and patient, and as we said, he won't subject himself to the whims of, these outside forces. So you've encountered so many different kinds of creative types, both on this show and just out in the world. And I wondered if he reminded you of any other examples in this respect.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think there's two schools of thought when it comes to what your day job is that supports your art making. One is that you do something related, so they're always kind of informing each other, like you talked about, teaching. You're a painter, so you teach art at a middle school and then you paint for yourself on the weekends,
Right.
And then the other is actually that you get a job that's totally divorced from it, so that you're saving those parts of yourself for the art making process and you're not exhausting them in, your day job. I think both of those are really valid. That said, of the people I've interviewed, Peter One's journey is fairly unique in that a lot of the people I've interviewed have either been younger folks like the Beths who are in their 20s and have been making music together since high school, or, they steadily built a career like Sarah Goldberg, who played Sally on Barry, or they're kind of old lions of their art form like Tony Kushner or Nathan Lane or whatever, right? But every artist at some point has to figure out their strategy for approaching the pragmatic. How do I make a living? If I have a kid or kids, how do I feed them and also get to see them since the arts are extremely time intensive and take you away from your home? Even if it's to your office in the basement to write. What city do I want to live in? Do I want to live in a city? Can I afford where I'm actually living or want to live? The pragmatics are a huge part of the creative life, and they involve just as much, if not sometimes more, creativity than the actual creating of the art.
Right. Well, pulling back a bit, when we think about this resurgence that he's having as an artist, one parallel that came to my mind is Ibrahim Ferrer, the incredible Cuban singer who, he'd slipped into obscurity in Havana before turning into a global superstar, courtesy of the Buena Vista Social Club, both the album and maybe especially the film. No, that's not a perfect parallel, but you can see why that's where my mind went. Your conversation really it touches on this, but I wonder if you could say more about the machinery of cultural discovery and let's be honest, commodification that propelled Peter One, this wonderful artist, back into the spotlight.
Well, I'm definitely interested in hearing your thoughts on this as well, because as a critic, you're constantly reviewing these kinds of reissues and rediscoveries and thinking about them as a music critic. But I will say for myself, I have very romantic feelings about the rediscovery industry. I love the machinery of, cultural rediscovery. I'm a total sucker for it. I love the New York Review of Books editions and Valancourt and Tor Essentials, which are bringing back the neglected classics. I love Numero Group. Are you a Numero Group fan?
Yes.
They go and they find these local soul labels all over the United States that never had national distribution and put together a sampler of their best work. The first theater company I worked for after graduating college is the Mint, which rediscovers neglected plays. There's something about that is so pleasurable. I agree there's a commodification aspect to it, but I'm a sucker for it. I love the idea that nestled in the cracks of our, cultural firmament are these gems that are just waiting for someone to notice them, for the metal detector guy sweeping the beach to dig in and see that there's a lost Krugerrand down there or something. I mean, to me, if I had to put my cultural critic hat on, I think that part of it is about our own desire as the individual consumer and audience member to not be forgotten, particularly to not be forgotten after our death. Even if no one pays attention to you now when you're alive, somewhere in the future, someone's going to find a photo album with a picture of you in it, or a home video you recorded, or a novel you published that didn't sell well, and you get to live on again in this kind of curious afterlife. I think that's part of what the appeal is for me.
Hopefully it's an unpublished novel and not a series of tweets.
Yes. Someone digs in and they're like, what? Why did this guy post all these images of Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at things? What is the meaning of this?
Bringing that idea back to Peter One, one thing that intrigues me about this story of rediscovery is that, often when you have, especially in the sort of folk rediscovery, you're like, oh, here's this singer-songwriter from the Ivory Coast, and there's a certain kind of, Western presumption that you have about what
Right.
that is going to sound like or what that's going to be. This sort of romantic idea of a kind of purity of folk expression or what have you.
Yeah.
And Peter One is an absolute synthesist. He's really cosmopolitan in his listening and in his songwriting and, his choice of language as he's performing. And so he really complicates the idea of the sort of like, hey, we found this forgotten creator. And he's like, yeah, and I'm already way ahead of you.
Yeah, totally.
I love that. That is all the time we have for today's show. Thank you, Isaac, for this wonderful conversation. And before we go, just one more reminder that if you join Slate Plus, you'll get to hear all of our episodes ad-free. You'll also get to hear exclusive segments on the show and a lot of other Slate podcasts. And you'll get to hear entire bonus episodes of shows like Slow Burn and Big Mood, Little Mood. And of course, you'll get full access to all the articles on Slate.com. You can sign up today at slate.com/workingplus.
Thank you to Peter One for being our guest this week, and thanks to our producer Cameron Drews, who keeps us from sliding into both obscurity and mediocrity. We'll be back next week with a very special encore presentation of my conversation with Hannah Boss and Paul Thureen, the writers and co-creators with Bridget Everett of the hit HBO show Somebody, Somewhere. Until then, get back to work.